Homeward Bound, Part 8 by Heinrich Heine. Translated by Emma Lazarus. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Homeward Bound. 71. All night in the shadowy post-chaise we drove through the winter weather. We slept on each other's bosoms, we jested and laughed together. But how were we both astonished, when morning bade us stir. Betwixt us two sat Cupid, the blindfold passenger. 72. Lord knows where the reckless creature chose her transient stopping place, swearing through the rainy weather, everywhere I seek her trace. I have been to every tavern, running up and running down, and of every surly waiter made inquiries in the town. Lo, I see her in yon window, and she beckons, all is well. Could I guess that you had chosen, lady, such a grand hotel? 73. Like shadows black the houses uprise in long array. Enveloped in my mantle I hurry on my way. The old cathedral belfry chimes midnight, grave and slow. With all her charms and kisses my love awaits me now. The moon is my companion, kind beaming from the sky. I reach the house beloved, and joyously I cry. I thank thee, trusty servant, that thou hast cheered my way. And now, dear moon, I leave thee, on others shed thy ray. And if a lonely lover, who sings of grief, thou see, O give him such sweet solace as thou hast given me. 74. Wert thou, in sooth, mine honoured wife, then shouldst thou envied be. A merry pastime were thy life, all pleasure, mirth, and glee. And shouldst thou scold and rail and curse, I'd meekly bear my fate. But if thou do not praise my verse, then shall we separate. 75. Upon thy snow-white shoulders I lean my head at rest, and secretly I hearken to the yearning of thy breast. In thy heart hussars blue-coated are riding and blowing their horn, and my darling will surely desert me with the earliest streak of morn. And if thou desert me to-morrow, none the less art thou mine to-day. And within thine arms so lovely, still doubly blest I stay. 76. Hussars are blowing their trumpets, and to thy doors they ride. A garland of wreathed roses I bring to thee, my bride. That were a boisterous household, land pest and soldiery, and in thy little heart, dear, the goodliest quarters be. 77. I, too, in my youth did languish, suffered many a bitter anguish, burning in love's spell. Now the price of fuel's higher, and extinguished is the fire. Ma foi, and that is well. Think of this, my youthful beauty. Dry the stupid tears of duty. Quell love's stupid, vague alarms. Since thy life is not yet over, oh, forget thy former lover, ma foi, within mine arms. 78. Dost thou hate me then so fiercely? Hast thou really changed so blindly? To the world I shall proclaim it, thou couldst treat me so unkindly. Say, ungrateful lips, how can you breathe an evil word of scorning of the very man who kissed you so sincerely yestermorning? 79. Yes, they are the self-same eyes that still brighten as I greet her. Yes, they are the self-same lips that made all my life seem sweeter. Yes, it is the very voice, at whose slightest tones I faltered. But no more the same am I went homeward strangely altered. By the fair white arms embraced with a close and tender passion, now I lie upon her heart, dull of brain and cold vexation. 80. Ye could not understand mine ire, nor I the tales that ye did tell, but when we met within the mire, we knew each other very well. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Homeward Bound, Part 9, by Heinrich Heine. Translated by Emma Lazarus. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Homeward Bound. 81. But the eunuchs still complained, when I raised my voice to sing. They complained and they maintained that it had too harsh a ring. And they raised with one accord all their dainty voices clear, like crystal trills outpoured, oh, how pure and fine to hear! And they sang of love so sweet, love's desire and love's full measure, that the rare artistic treat made the ladies weep for pleasure. 82. On the walls of Salamanca gently sigh the breezes yonder. Often with my gracious Donna there on summer eves I wander. Round my beauty's slender girdle, tenderly mine arm enwreathing, I can feel with blessed finger her proud bosom's haughty breathing. But I hear an anxious whisper through the linden branches coming, and below the sombre mill stream murmurs dream of evil omen. Ah, Signora, I foresee it, I shall be expelled forever. On the walls of Salamanca we again shall wander never. 83. Next to me lives Don Henriquez, he whom folk the Beauty call. Neighborly our rooms are parted only by a single wall. Salamanca's ladies flutter when he strides along the street, clinking spurs, mustachios twirling, and with hounds about his feet. But in quiet hours of evening he will sit at home apart, his guitar between his fingers, and sweet dreams within his heart. Then he smites the chords with passion, all at once begins to strum. Ah, like squalling cats his scrapings, told-y roll and toodle-dum. 84. We scarcely had met ere thy voice and thine eye assured me, my darling, that thou wast mine own. And had not thy mother stood cruelly nigh, I think I should really have kissed thee anon. To-morrow again I depart from the town, and hasten forth on my weary track. From the window my yellow-haired lass peeps down, and the friendliest greetings I waft her back. 85. Lo, on the mountains the sunbeams first kiss, the bells of the herd ring afar on the plain. My darling, my lambkin, my sun and my bliss! Oh, fain would I see thee and greet thee again. I gaze on thy windows with curious eyes. Farewell, dearest child, I must vanish for thee. In vain, for the curtain moves not, there she lies. There slumbers she still, and dreams about me. 86. In Hala, near the market, there stand two mighty lions. Ah, lion strength of Hala town, how art thou tamed and broken! In Hala, near the market, there stands a mighty giant. He holds a sword, and he never moves, he is petrified with terror. In Hala, near the market, a stately church is standing, where the Burschenschaft and the Landsmannschaft have plenty of room to worship. 87. Dusky summer eve declineth, over wood and verdant meadow, golden moon in azure heavens, wafting fragrance, softly shineth. By the brookside chirps the cricket, something stirs within the water, and the wanderer hears a rustling, hears a breathing past the thicket. In the streamlet white and slender, all alone the nymph is bathing, beautiful her arms and shoulders shimmer in the moonbeam's splendor. 88. Night enfolds these foreign meadows, sick heart, weary limbs caressing. Ah, thy light athwart the shadows, moon, is like a quiet blessing. Gentle moon, thy mild beams banish gloomy terrors where they hover. All my woes dissolve and vanish, and mine eyes with dew brim over. 89. Death is like the balmy night, life is like the sultry day. It is dark, and I am sleepy, I am weary of the light. O'er my couch a tree doth spring, in its boughs a nightingale sings of love, of naught but love. In my dreams I hear him sing. 90. Tell me where's your lovely maiden, whom you sang of erst so well, as a flame that through your bosom pierced with rare enchanted spell? Ah, that flame is long extinguished, and my heart is cold above, and this little book the urn is for the ashes of my love. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Songs to Seraphine by Heinrich Heine, translated by Emma Lazarus, read for LibriVox.org by Thomas Peter. 1. In the dreamy wood I wander, in the wood at eventide, and thy slender graceful figure wanders ever by my side. Is not this thy white veil floating? Is not that thy gentle face? Is it but the moonlight breaking through the dark fir branches' space? Can these tears so softly flowing be my very own I hear? Or indeed art thou beside me, weeping, darling, close anear? 2. Over all the quiet seashore shadowing falls the hour of Hesper. Through the clouds the moon is breaking, and I hear the billows whisper. Can that man who wanders yonder be a lover or a dunce? For he seems so sad and merry both at once. But the laughing moon looks downward, and she speaks, for she doth know it. Yes, he is both fool and lover, and, to cap it all, a poet. 3. Behold, 'tis a foam-white sea-mew that flutters there on high. Far over the black night waters the moon hangs up in the sky. The shark and the roach dart forward for breath as the breeze floats by. The sea-mew poises and plunges, the moon hangs up in the sky. O lovely transient spirit, how heavy of heart am I! Too near to thee is the water, the moon hangs up in the sky. 4. In moonlit splendor rests the sea, the soft waves ripple along. My heart beats low and heavily, I think of the ancient song. The ancient song that quaintly sings towns lost in olden times, and how from the sea's abyss there rings the sound of prayers and chimes. But pious prayers and chimes, I ween, are offered all in vain, for that which once hath buried been may never come back again. 5. I knew that thou must love me, 'twas long ago made clear, but thy confession filled me with deep and secret fear. I clambered up the mountain, and sang aloud for glee. Then while the sun was setting, I wept beside the sea. My heart is like the sun, dear, yon kindled flame above, and sinks in large orbed beauty within a sea of love. 6. How enviously the sea-mew looks after us, my dear, because upon thy lips then so close I pressed mine ear. He fain would know what issued, most curious of birds, if thou mine ear fulfillest with kisses or with words. What through my spirit hisses? I too am sore perplexed. Thy words, dear, and thy kisses are strangely intermixed. 7. Shy as a fawn she passed me by, and fleet as any heifer she clambered on from cliff to cliff, her hair flew with the zephyr. Where to the sea's edge sloped the rocks, I reached her, trembling near it. Then, softly with the softest words, I melted her proud spirit. There we two sat as high as heaven, and heaven's own rapture drinking, while in the dark waves far below the gradual sun was sinking. Below us in the deep, dark sea the fair sun dropped, then dashing, the waves broke wildly over him with turbulence of passion. Oh, do not weep, he is not dead, 'neath billows swelling higher. He has but hidden in my heart with all his burning fire. 8. Come, let us build upon this rock the church of God's last lover. The third New Testament's revealed, the agony is over. Refuted is the second book that fooled us through long ages. The stupid torture of the flesh is not for modern sages. Hear'st thou the Lord in the dark sea with thousand voices speaking? Seest thou o'erhead the thousand lights of God's own glory breaking? The holy God dwells in the light, as in the dark abysses, for God is everything that is, his breath is in our kisses. 9. Grey night broods above the ocean, little stars gleam sparkling o'er us, and the water's many voices chant in deep protracted chorus. Hark! The old north wind is playing on the polished waves of ocean that, like tubes of some great organ, thrill and stir with sounding motion. Partly pagan, partly sacred, rise these melodies upswelling passionately to the heavens, where the joyous stars are dwelling. And the stars wax large and larger, in bright mazes they are driven, large as suns at last revolving through the spaces of vast heaven. And weird harmonies they warble with the billows' music blending, solar nightingales they circle through the spheres strange concord sending. And with mighty roar and trembling, sky and ocean both are ringing, and a giant's stormy rapture feel I in my bosom springing. 10. Shadow love and shadow kisses, life of shadows, wondrous strange, shall all hours be sweet as this is, silly darling, safe from change? All things that we clasp and cherish pass like dreams we may not keep. Human hearts forget and perish, human eyes must fall asleep. 11. She stood beside the ocean, and sighed as one oppressed. With such a deep emotion the sunset thrilled her breast. Dear maiden, look more gaily, this trick is old, thou'lt find. Before us sinks he daily, to rise again behind. 12. My ship sails forth with sable sails, far over the savage sea. Thou knowest how heavy is my woe, yet still thou woundest me. Thy heart is fickle as the wind, and flits incessantly. My ship sails forth with sable sails, far over the savage sea. 13. I told nor man nor woman how ill you dealt with me. I came abroad and published it to the fishes in the sea. Only upon terra firma I have left you your good name, but over all the ocean every creature knows your shame. 14. The roaring waves press onward to reach the strand, then swell and crashing downward break on the sand. They roll with surging power, nor rest nor fail, and then ebb slow and slower. Of what avail? 15. The Runenstein juts in the sea. I sit here with my dreams. The billows wander foamingly. Winds pipe, the sea-mew screams. Oh, I have loved full many a lass, and many a worthy fellow. Where have they gone? The shrill winds pass, and wandering foams the billow. 16. The waves gleam in the sunshine. They seem of gold to be. When I am dead, my brothers, oh, drop me in the sea. For dearly have I loved it, like cooling balm descends upon my heart its current. We were the best of friends. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. To Angelique by Heinrich Heine, translated by Emma Lazarus. Read for LibriVox.org by Thomas Peter. 1. Now that heaven smiles in favour, like a mute shall I still languish. I, who when unhappy, ever sang so much about mine anguish. Till 1,000 striplings haunted by despair my notes refluted, and unto the woe I chanted, greater evils still imputed. O ye nightingale's sweet choir, that my bosom holds in capture, lift your joyous voices higher, let the whole world hear your rapture. 2. Though thou wert fain to pass me quickly, yet backward didst thou look by chance. Thy wistful lips were frankly parted, impetuous scorn was in thy glance. Would that I ne'er had sought to hold thee, to touch thy fleeing gown's white train. The dear mark of thy tiny footprints, would that I ne'er had found again. For now thy rare wild charm has vanished, like others thou art tame to see, intolerably kind and gentle. Alas, thou art in love with me. 3. Ne'er can I believe, young beauty, thy disdainful lips alone, for such big black eyes as thine are, virtue never yet did own. And those brown-streaked lies down glancing say, I love thee, clearly scanned. Let thy little white heart kiss me. White heart, dost thou understand? 4. From the slightest of emotions, what a sudden transformation, to the most unbounded passion, and the tenderest relation. Every day it waxes deeper, my affection for my lady. I am almost half persuaded that I am in love already. Beautiful her soul, though truly that's a question of opinion. I am surer of the beauty of the bodily dominion. Oh, that waist, and oh, that forehead, oh, that nose, the sweet enclosure of the lovely lips in smiling, and the bearing's proud composure. 5. Ah, how fair thou art, when frankly thou reveal'st thy soul's dimensions, and thy speech is overflowing with the noblest of intentions. When thou tell'st me how thy feelings always have been truest, highest, To the pride within thy bosom thou no sacrifice deniest. Not for millions, thou averst, man could thy pure honour buy. Ere thou sell thyself for money, ah, thou wouldst far liefer die. I before thee stand and listen. To the end I listen stoutly, like a type of faith in silence, and I fold my hands devoutly. 6. I closed my sweetheart's either eye, and on her mouth I kissed, now asking me the reason why she never gives me rest. From set of sun till morning rise, each hour does she persist. Oh, wherefore did you close mine eyes, when on my mouth you kissed? I never yet have told her why, myself I scarcely wist. I closed my sweetheart's either eye, and on her mouth I kissed. 7. When I, enraptured by precious kisses, rest in thine arms for briefest season, of Germany thou must not ask me, I cannot bear it, there is a reason. Leave Germany in peace, I do beseech thee. Vex not with endless questions my poor spirit concerning home, friends, social, kind relations. There is a reason why I cannot bear it. The oak tree there is green, the German women have soft blue eyes, tender they are and fair. They whisper sighs of hope and truth and passion. I have good cause, 'tis more than I can bear. 8. Whilst I, after other people's darlings gaze, and before strange sweethearts' dwellings, sighing pace through weary days, then perhaps those other people in another quarter pine, pacing by my very windows, coveting that girl of mine, that were human. God in heaven, watch us still whate'er befall. God in heaven, joy and blessing send us all. 9. Dismiss me not, e'en if my thirst quenched with that sweet draught be. Bear with me for a season yet, that shall suffice for me. Canst thou no longer be my love, then be to me a friend. For friendship only just begins, when love is at an end. 10. This mad carnival of loving, this our heart's intoxication ends at last, and we twain, sobered, yawningly look each on each. All the luscious cup is drained that was filled with sensuous juices, foaming to the brim, enticing. All the luscious cup is drained, and the violins are silent, that so sweetly played for dancing, for the giddy dance of passion. Yes, the violins are silent, and the lanterns are extinguished, that with gorgeous light illumined all the motley troop of maskers. Yes, the lanterns are extinguished. And tomorrow comes Ash Wednesday. I will draw upon thy forehead then an ashen cross, and murmur, Woman, thou art dust, remember. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Spring Festival by Heinrich Heine. Translated by Emma Lazarus. Read for LibriVox.org by Thomas Peter. This is the springtide's mournful feast. The frantic troops of blooming girls are rushing hither with flying curls. Moaning, they smite their bare white breast. Adonis! Adonis! The night has come. By the torches' gleams they search the forest on every side, that echoes with anguish far and wide, with tears, mad laughter, and sobs and screams. Adonis! Adonis! The mortal youth, so strangely fair, lies on the cold turf pale and dead. his heart's blood staineth the flowers red, and a wild lament fulfills the air. Adonis! Adonis! End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Child Herald by Heinrich Heine. Translated by Emma Lazarus. Read for LibriVox.org by Thomas Peter. Lo, a large black-shrouded barge sadly moves with sails outspread, and mute creatures, muffled features, hold grim watch above the dead. Calm below it lies the poet, with his fair face bare and white, still with yearning ever turning azure eyes towards heaven's light. As he saileth sadly waileth some bereaven undine bride, o'er the springing waves outringing, hark! A dirge floats far and wide. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Asra by Heinrich Heine. Translated by Emma Lazarus. Read for LibriVox.org by Thomas Peter. Daily the fair Sultan's daughter wanders to and fro at twilight by the margin of the fountain, where the waters white are rippling. Daily the young slave at twilight stands beside the fountain's margin, where the waters white are rippling. Daily grows he pale and paler. There one evening moved the princess toward the slave with words swift spoken. Tell me what thy name is, where thy home is, what thy lineage. Spake the youthful slave, My name is Mahomet. I come from Yemen, and by birth I am an Asra, one who dieth when he loves. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Helena by Heinrich Heine. Translated by Emma Lazarus. Read for LibriVox.org by Thomas Peter. Thou hast invoked me from my grave, and through thy magic spell hast quickened me with fierce desire. This flame thou canst not quell. O press thy lips against my lips, divine is mortal breath. I drink thy very soul from thee, insatiable is death. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Song by Heinrich Heine. Translated by Emma Lazarus. Read for LibriVox.org by Thomas Peter. There stands a lonely pine tree in the north, on a barren height. He sleeps while the ice and snowflakes swathe him in folds of white. He dreameth of a palm tree far in the sunrise land, lonely and silent longing on her burning bank of sand. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The North Sea. First Cyclists by Heinrich Heine. Translated by Emma Lazarus. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo and Eva Davis. To be disinterested in everything, but above all in love and friendship, was my supreme wish, my maxim, my practice, hence my daring expression at a later period. If I love thee, what is that to thee? Sprang directly from my heart. Goethe's Truth and Poetry, Book 14. 1. Coronation. O songs of mine, beloved songs of mine, up, up, and don your armor, and let the trumpets blare, and lift upon your shield this youthful maiden, who now shall reign supreme over my heart as queen. Hail, hail, thou youthful queen! From the sun above I snatch the beaming red gold, and weave therewith a diadem for thy consecrated head. From the fluttering azure silken canopy of heaven, where blaze the diamonds of night, a precious fragment I cut, and, as a coronation mantle, I hang it upon thy royal shoulders. I bestow on thee a court of richly attired sonnets, haughty terzina and stately stanzas. My wit shall serve thee as courier, my fancy shall be thy fool. Thy herald, whose crest is a smiling tear, shall be my humour. But I myself, O Queen, low do I kneel before thee, on the cushion of crimson samite, and as homage I dedicate to thee the tiny morsel of reason that has been compassionately spared me by thy predecessor in the realm. 2. Twilight. On the wan shore of the sea, lonely I sat with troubled thoughts. The sun dropped lower and cast glowing red streaks on the water. And the white wide waves, crowding in with the tide, foamed and rustled nearer and nearer, with a strange rustling, a whispering, a hissing, a laughter, a murmur, a sighing, a seething, and amidst all these a mysterious lullaby. I seemed to hear long past traditions, lovely old time fairy tales, which as a boy I had heard from the neighbours' children, when on summer evenings we had nestled on the stone steps of the porch, with little eager hearts and wistful cunning eyes, whilst the grown maidens sat opposite at their windows near their sweet smelling flower pots, with their rosy faces smiling and beaming in the moonlight. 3. Sunset. The glowing red sun descends into the wide, tremulous, silver-grey ocean. Ethereal, rosy-tinted forms are wreathed behind him and opposite. Through the veil of autumnal twilight clouds, like a sad, deathly pale countenance, breaks the moon, and after her, like sparks of light, in the misty distance shimmer the stars. Once there shone forth in heaven, nuptially united, Luna the goddess and Sol the god, and around them gathered the stars, those innocent little children. But evil tongues whispered dissension, and in bitterness parted the lofty, illustrious pair. Now all day in lonely splendor the sun god fares overhead, worshipped and magnified in song, for the excellence of his glory, by haughty prosperity hardened men. But at night in heaven wandereth Luna, the poor mother, with her orphaned, starry children. And she shines with a quiet sadness, and loving maidens and gentle poets dedicate to her their tears and their songs. Poor weak Luna, womanly natured, still doth she love her beautiful consort, Towards evening, pale and trembling, she peers forth from light clouds, and sadly gazes after the departing one, and in her anguish fain would call to him,
"Come, come, our children are pining for thee."
but the scornful sun god, at the mere sight of his spouse, glows in doubly dyed purple with wrath and grief, and implacably he hastens downward to the cold waves of his widowed couch. Thus did evil whispering tongues bring grief and ruin even upon the immortal gods. And the poor gods in heaven above painfully wander disconsolate on their eternal path, and cannot die, and drag with them the chain of their glittering misery. But I, the Son of Man, the lowly born, the death-crowned one, I murmur no more. 4. Night on the Shore. Starless and cold is the night. The sea yawns, and outstretched flat on his paunch over the sea lies the uncouth north wind, secretly with a groaning, stifled voice, like a peevish, crabbed man in a freak of good humor. He babbles to the ocean, and recounts many a mad tale, stories of murderous giants, quaint old Norwegian sagas, and from time to time, with re-echoing laughter, he howls forth the conjuration songs of the Edda, with runic proverbs, so mysteriously arrogant, so magically powerful, that the white children of the sea high in the air upspring and rejoice, intoxicated with insolence. Meanwhile, on the level beach, over the wave-wetted sand, strides a stranger whose heart is still wilder than wind or wave. Where his feet fall, sparks are scattered and shells are cracked. And he wraps himself closer in his grey mantle, and walks rapidly through the windy night, surely guided by a little light that kindly and invitingly beams from the lonely fisherman's hut. Father and brother are on the sea, and quite alone in the hut bides the fisher's daughter, the fisher's rarely beautiful daughter. She sits on the hearth and listens to the cosy, auspicious hum of the boiling kettle, and lays crackling faggots upon the fire, and blows thereon till the flickering red flames with a magic charm are reflected on her blooming face, on her delicate white shoulders, which so pathetically outpeep from the coarse grey smock, and on her little tidy hand, which gathers more closely the petticoat about her dainty loins. But suddenly the door springs wide, and in steps the nocturnal stranger. His eyes rest with confident love on the slim white maiden, who stands trembling before him like a frightened lily. And he flings his mantle to the ground and laughs and speaks. "Thou seest, my child, I keep my word, and I come, and with me comes the olden time when the gods of heaven descended to the daughters of men, and embraced the daughters of men, and begot with them a race of sceptre-bearing kings, and heroes, the wonder of the world. But thou, my child, no longer stand amazed at my divinity, and I beseech thee, boil me some tea with rum, for it is cold outdoors, and in such a night air as this even we, the eternal gods, must freeze, and we easily catch a divine catarrh and an immortal cough. 5. Poseidon. The sunbeams played upon the wide rolling sea. Far out on the roadstead glimmered the vessel that was to bear me home. But the favouring wind was lacking, and still quietly I sat on the white down by the lonely shore. And I read the lay of Odysseus, the old, the eternally young lay, from whose billowy rushing pages joyously into me ascended the breath of the gods, and the lustrous springtide of humanity, and the blooming skies of Hellas. My loyal heart faithfully followed the son of Laertes in his wanderings and vexations. By his side I sat with troubled soul, on the hospitable hearth, where queens were spinning purple, and I helped him to lie and happily to escape from the dens of giants and the arms of nymphs, and I followed him into Cimmerian night, into storm and shipwreck, and with him I suffered unutterable misery. With a sigh I spake, O thou cruel Poseidon, fearful is thy wrath, and I myself tremble for mine own journey home. Scarce had I uttered the words, when the sea foamed, and from the white billows arose the reed-crowned head of the sea-god, and disdainfully he cried, "Have no fear, poetling! Not in the least will I imperil thy poor little ship, neither will I harass thy precious life with too considerable oscillations. For thou, poetling, hast never offended me. Thou hast not injured a single turret on the sacred stronghold of Priam. Not a single little lash hast thou singed in the eyelid of my son Polyphemus. And never hast thou been sagely counselled and protected by the goddess of wisdom, Pallas Athene." Thus exclaimed Poseidon, and plunged again into the sea, and, at his coarse sailor wit, laughed under the water Amphitrite, the stout fisherwoman, and the stupid daughters of Nereus. 6. Declaration. Shadowing downward came dusky evening. Wildly the breakers rolled. I sat alone upon the shore, and gazed at the white dance of the waves, and my bosom heaved with the sea. A deep homesickness yearningly seized my heart for thee, O lovely image, who surroundst me everywhere, who call'st to me everywhere, 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 in the rushing of the wind, in the dashing of the sea, and in the sighing of mine own breast. With a slender reed I wrote upon the sand, "Agnes, I love thee." But the wicked waves came overflowing that sweet confession, and blotted it out. O brittle reed, O swiftly scattered sand, O flowing waves, I trust you no more. The heavens grow darker, my heart beats more wildly, and with a mighty hand from the Norwegian woods I snatch the loftiest fir, and I plunge it into Etna's glowing gulf, and, with such a fire-steeped giant's pen, I write on the dusky canopy of heaven, "Agnes, I love thee." Each night hereafter overhead shall blaze those eternal letters of flame, and all future generations of our descendants shall joyously read the celestial sign, Agnes, I love thee. 7. Night in the cabin. The ocean hath its pearls, the heaven hath its stars, but oh, my heart, my heart, my heart hath its love. Great are the sea and the heavens, but greater is my heart, and fairer than pearls or stars glistens and glows my love. Thou little youthful maiden, come unto my mighty heart. My heart and the sea and the heavens are melting away with love. On the azure vault of heaven, where the beauteous stars are shining, I am fain to press my lips now, wildly press midst stormy weeping. Yonder myriad stars the eyes are of my darling, and they twinkle, and they beckon to me kindly from the azure vault of heaven. Towards the azure vault of heaven, towards the eyes of my beloved, piously mine arms uplifting, thus I supplicate and worship. Lovely eyes, ye lights of heaven, graciously my soul inspire. Let me die, and let me win you, you and all your spacious heavens. From the eyes of heaven yonder, golden sparks fall, trembling downward, through the night. My soul dilateth, filled and overfilled with passion. O ye eyes of heaven yonder, weep yourselves to death within me, till my spirit overfloweth with the radiant starry teardrops, cradled by the waves of ocean, and by drowsy thoughts and visions. Still I lie within the cabin, in my berth so dark and narrow. Through the open hatchway yonder, I can see the stars clear shining, the beloved eyes so gentle, of my gentle well beloved. The beloved eyes so gentle, hold above my head their vigil, and they glimmer and they beckon from the azure vault of heaven, on the azure vault of heaven. Still I gaze through blessed hours, till a white and filmy vapour veils from me those eyes beloved. Against the wooden wall of the ship, where my dreaming head reclines, break the waves, the wild sea waves. They whisper and murmur close into mine ear.
Oh, foolish young fellow, thine arm is short, and the sky is far off, and the stars are all firmly nailed above with golden nails. Vain is thy yearning, and vain is thy sighing. The best thou canst do is to go to sleep.
I dreamed a dream about a strange vast heath, all overlaid with white and quiet snow. And I beneath that white snow buried lay, and slept the cold and lonely sleep of death. But from the dark and shadowy heavens yonder, upon my grave the starry eyes looked down. Those gentle eyes, triumphantly they sparkled, with still serenity, yet full of love. 8. Storm. The tempest is raging, it lashes the waves, and the waves, foaming and rearing in wrath, tower on high, and the white mountains of water surge as though they were alive, while the little ship overclimbs them with laborious haste, and suddenly plunges down into the black, wide yawning abyss of the tide. O sea, thou mother of beauty, of the foam engendered one, grandmother of love, spare me! Already scenting death flutters around me the white ghostly sea mew, and whets his beak on the mast, and hungers with glutton greed for the heart which resounds with the glory of thy daughter, and which the little rogue thy grandson hath chosen for his playground. In vain are my prayers and entreaties, my cry dies away in the rushing storm. In the battle tumult of the winds, they roar and whistle and crackle and howl like a bedlam of tones. And amidst them distinctly I hear alluring notes of harps, heart melting, heart rending. And I recognize the voice far away on the rocky Scotch coast, where the little grey castle juts out over the breaking waves. There at the lofty arched window stands a beautiful suffering woman, transparently delicate and pale as marble. And she plays on the harp and she sings, and the wind stirs her flowing locks and wafts her melancholy song over the wide stormy sea. 9. Calm. Calm at sea. The sunbeams flicker, falling on the level water, and athwart the liquid jewels ploughs the ship her emerald furrows. By the rudder lies the pilot on his stomach gently snoring. Near the mast the tarry ship boy stoops at work, the sail repairing. 'Neath their smut his cheeks are ruddy, hotly flushed his broad mouth twitches. Full of sadness are the glances of his eyes so large and lovely. For the captain stands before him, raves and scolds and curses. Rascal, little rascal, thou hast robbed me of a herring from the barrel. Calm at sea, above the water, comes a cunning fish out peeping, warms his little head in sunshine, merrily his small fins plashing. But from airy heights the sea mew on the little fish darts downward, carrying in his beak his booty, back he soars into the azure. 10. An apparition in the sea. I, however, lay on the edge of the vessel, and gazed with dreamy eyes down into the glass clear water, and gazed deeper and deeper, deep down into the bottom of the sea. At first like a twilight mist, then gradually more distinctly colored, domes of churches and towers arose, and at last as clear as sunshine, a whole city, an antique Netherland city, enlivened with people, grave men with black mantles and white ruffs and chains of honor, and long swords and long faces, strode over the swarming market-place towards the court-house with its high steps, where the stone effigies of emperors kept guard with sceptre and sword. Near by, past long rows of houses, past casements like polished mirrors, and pyramidal clipped lindens, wandered in rustling silks the young maidens, with slender forms and flower faces, decently encircled by their black hoods, and their waving golden hair. Motley clad folk in Spanish garb strut past and salute each other. Elderly dames in brown old-fashioned attire, missal and rosary in hand, hasten with tripping steps towards the great cathedral, drawn thither by the chiming bells, and by the deep-voiced tones of the organ, and the far-off chimes smite me also with mysterious awe, insatiable yearning, profound sadness steal into my heart, into my scarcely healed heart. I feel as if its wounds were kissed open by beloved lips and began to bleed afresh, with hot, red drops that fall long and slowly on an old house below there in the deep city of the sea. On an old high gabled house, sadly deserted by all living creatures, save that in the lower window, sits a maiden, her head resting on her arms, like a poor forsaken child. And I know thee, thou poor forsaken child. Deep down, deep as the sea, thou hidest thyself from me in a childish freak, and never couldst rise again. And thou satst a stranger among strangers, through long ages, whilst I, my soul full of grief, I sought thee over the whole earth. Forever I sought thee, thou ever beloved, thou long lost, thou found at last. I have found thee, and I see once more thy sweet face, the wise, loyal eyes, the darling smile. And never again will I leave thee. And I come down to thee now, and with wide stretched arms I leap down upon thy breast. But just at the right moment the captain seized me by the foot, and drew me from the edge of the vessel, and cried with a peevish laugh, "Doctor, are you possessed by the devil?" 11. Purification. Remain in thy deep sea home, thou insane dream, which so many a night hast tortured my heart with a counterfeit happiness, and which now as a vision of the sea dost threaten me even in the broad daylight. Remain there below to all eternity. And I cast moreover down unto thee all my sorrows and sins, and the cap and bells of folly that have jingled so long upon my head, and the cold, sleek serpent skin of dissimulation, which so long has enwound my soul, my sick soul, my God-denying, angel-denying, wretched soul. Hilly ho, hilly ho, here comes the breeze. Up with the sails, they flutter and belly to the wind. Over the treacherous smooth plain hastens the ship, and the emancipated soul rejoices. 12. Peace. High in heaven stood the sun, surrounded by white clouds. The sea was calm, and I lay musing on the helm of the ship, dreamily musing, and, half awake, half asleep, I saw Christ, the Saviour of the world, in waving white raiment. He strode gigantically tall over land and sea. His head touched heaven. He spread his hands in benediction over land and sea, and for a heart in his bosom he bore the sun, the red, fiery sun. And the red, fiery sun heart showered its beams of grace, and its pure love bestowing light, that illumines and warms over land and sea. Peals of festal bells drew hither and thither, as swans might draw by chains of roses the smooth gliding vessel, and sportively drew it to the verdant banks, where folk dwelt in a lofty towered, overhanging town. O miracle of peace! How quiet was the town! Hushed was the dull murmur of chattering, sweltering trade. And through the clean, resounding streets walked people clad in white, bearing branches of palm. And when two such would meet, they looked at each other with ardent sympathy, and, trembling with love and self-denial, kissed each other's brow, and glanced upward towards the sun heart of the Saviour, which in glad propitiation irradiated downward its crimson blood, and thrice they exclaimed, Praised be Jesus Christ! Couldst thou have conceived this vision, what wouldst thou have given, most dearly beloved? Thou who art so weak in body and mind, and so strong in faith. Thou who so singly honourest the Trinity, who kissest daily the pug and the reins and the paws of thy lofty protectress, and hastenest with canting devotion to the aulic counsellor, and to the counsellor of justice, and at last to the council of the realm, in the pious city, where sand and faith flourish, and the long-suffering waters of the sacred spree purify souls and dilute tea. Couldst thou have conceived this vision, most dearly beloved? Thou hadst borne it to the lofty minnows of the market-place, with thy pale, blinking countenance, wrapped with piety and humility, and their high mightinesses, ravished and trembling with ecstasy, would have fallen praying with thee on their knees, and their eyes glowing with beatitude, would have promised thee an increase of salary of 100 thalers Prussian currency, and thou wouldst have stammered with folded hands, Praised be Jesus Christ. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The North Sea. Second Cyclist by Heinrich Heine. Translated by Emma Lazarus. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo and Eva Davis. Motto: Xenophon's Anabasis, Book 4, Chapter 5. 1. Salutation to the Sea. Thalata, Thalata, all hail to thee, thou eternal sea! All hail to thee 10,000 times from my jubilant heart, as once thou wast hailed by 10,000 Grecian hearts, misfortune combating, homeward yearning, world-renowned Grecian hearts. The waters heaved, they heaved and roared. The sun poured streaming downward its flickering rosy lights. The startled flocks of sea mews fluttered away with shrill screams. The coursers stamped, the shields rattled, and far out resounded like a triumphal paean, Thalata, Thalata, all hail to thee, thou eternal sea! Like the language of home, thy water whispers to me. Like the dreams of my childhood, I see it glimmer over thy billowy realm of waves. And it repeats to me anew olden memories of all the beloved glorious sports, of all the twinkling Christmas gifts, of all the ruddy coral trees, tiny golden fishes, pearls, and bright-hued mussels, which thou dost secretly preserve below there in thy limpid house of crystal. Oh, how I have pined in barren exile! Like a withered flower in the tin box of a botanist, my heart lay in my breast. I feel as if all winter I had sat, a sick man in a dark, sick room, which now I suddenly leave, and dazzlingly shines down upon me the emerald spring, the sunshine awakened spring, and the white blossom trees are rustling, and the young flowers look at me with their many-colored fragrant eyes. And there is an aroma, and a murmuring, and a breathing and a laughter. And in the blue sky the little birds are singing, Thalada, Thalada. Thou valiant retreating heart, how oft, how bitter oft did the fair barbarians of the north press thee hard. From their large victorious eyes they darted burning shafts. With crooked, polished words they threatened to cleave my breast. With sharp pointed missives they shattered my poor stunned brain. In vain I held up against them my shield. The arrows whizzed, the strokes cracked, and from the fair barbarians of the north I was pressed even unto the sea. And now with deep, free breath I hail the sea, the dear, redeeming sea. Thalada, Thalada. 2. Tempest. Gloomy lowers the tempest over the sea, and through the black wall of cloud is unsheathed the jagged lightning, swift outflashing and swift vanishing, like a jest from the brain of Kronos. Over the barren, billowy water far away rolls the thunder, and up leap the white water steeds, which Boreas himself begot out of the graceful mare of Erechthon. And the sea birds flutter around like the shadowy dead on the Styx, whom Charon repels from his nocturnal boat, poor merry little vessel, dancing yonder the most wretched of dances. Eleusis sends it his liveliest comrades, who wildly play to the jolliest measures. One pipes his horn, another blows, a third scrapes his growling bass viol, and the uncertain sailor stands at the rudder and constantly gazes at the compass, the trembling soul of the ship, and he raises his hands in supplication to heaven. Oh, save me, Castor, gigantic hero, and thou conquering wrestler, Pollux. 3. Wrecked. Hope and love, everything shattered, and I myself like a corpse that the growling sea has cast up. I lie on the strand, on the barren cold strand. Before me surges the waste of waters, behind me lies naught but grief and misery, and above me march the clouds, the formless grey daughters of the air, who from the sea in buckets of mist draw the water, and laboriously drag and drag it, and spill it again in the sea. A melancholy tedious task, and useless as my own life. The waves murmur, the sea mews scream, old recollections possess me, forgotten dreams, banished visions, tormentingly sweet, uprise. There lives a woman in the north, a beautiful woman, royally beautiful. Her slender, cypress-like form is swathed in a light white raiment. Her locks in their dusky fullness, like a blessed night, streaming from her braid-crowned head, curl softly as a dream around the sweet pale face. And from the sweet pale face, large and powerful beams an eye, like a black sun, O thou black sun, how oft, how rapturously oft I drank from thee the wild flames of inspiration, and stood and reeled intoxicated with fire. Then there hovered a smile as mild as a dove about the arched haughty lips, and the arched haughty lips breathed forth words as sweet as moonlight and delicate as the fragrance of the rose. And my soul soared aloft, and flew like an eagle up into the heavens. Silence, ye waves and sea mews! All is over, joy and hope, hope and love. I lie on the ground an empty shipwrecked man, and press my glowing face into the moist sand. 4. Sunset. The beautiful sun has quietly descended into the sea. The surging water is already tinted by dusky night, but still the red of evening sprinkles it with golden lights, and the rushing might of the tide presses toward the shore the white waves, that merrily and nimbly leap like woolly flocks of sheep, which at evening the singing shepherd boy drives homeward. How beautiful is the sun! Thus spake, after a long silence, the friend who wandered with me on the beach. And, half in jest, half in sober sadness, he assured me that the sun was a beautiful woman, who had for policy espoused the old god of the sea. All day she wanders joyously in the lofty heavens decked with purple, and sparkling with diamonds, universally beloved, universally admired by all creatures of the globe, and cheering all creatures of the globe with the radiance and warmth of her glance. But at evening, wretchedly constrained, she returns once more to the wet home, to the empty arms of her hoary spouse. Believe me, added my friend, and laughed and sighed and laughed again, they live down there in the daintiest wedlock. Either they sleep or else they quarrel, until high upheaves the sea above them, and the sailor amidst the roaring of the waves can hear how the old fellow berates his wife. Round strumpet of the universe, sunbeam coquette, the whole day you shine for others, and at night for me you are frosty and tired. After such curtain lectures, quite naturally burst into tears the proud sun, and bemoans her misery, and bemoans so lamentably long that the sea god suddenly springs desperately out of his bed, and quickly swims up to the surface of the ocean, to collect his wits and to breathe. Thus did I myself see him yesternight, uprise from the bosom of the sea. He had a jacket of yellow flannel, and a lily white nightcap, and a withered countenance. 5. The Song of the Oceanides. 'Tis nightfall, and paler grows the sea, and alone with his lonely soul there sits a man on the cold strand, and turns his death-cold glances towards the vast, death-cold vault of heaven, and towards the vast billowy sea. On airy sails float forth his sighs, and melancholy they return, and find the heart close locked, wherein they fain would anchor. And he groans so loud that the white sea mews, startled out of their sandy nest, flutter circling around him, and he laughingly speaks to them thus: Ye black-legged birds, with white wings, oversea flutterers, with crooked beaks, salt-water bibbers, ye oily seal-flesh devourers, Your life is as bitter as your food. I, however, the fortunate, taste naught but sweets. I taste the fragrance of the rose, the moonshine nourished bride of the nightingale. I taste still sweeter sugar plums stuffed with whipped cream. And the sweetest of all things I taste, the sweets of loving and of being loved. She loves me, the dear girl. Now stands she at home on the balcony of her house, and gazes forth in the twilight upon the street, and listens and yearns for me, really. Vainly does she glance around and sigh, and sighing she descends to the garden, and wanders midst the fragrance and the moonlight, and talks to the flowers, and tells them how I, her beloved, am so lovely and so lovable. Really. Later in her bed, in her sleep, in her dreams, blissfully she hovers about my precious image, so that in the morning at breakfast, upon the glistening buttered bread, she sees my smiling face, and she devours it for sheer love. Really. Thus boasted and boasted he, and meanwhile screamed the sea mews, as with cold, ironical tittering, the twilight mist ascended. Uncannily forth from lilac clouds peered the greenish yellow moon. Loud roared the billows, and deep from the loud roaring sea, as plaintive as a whispering monsoon, sounded the song of the Oceanides, of the beautiful compassionate mermaids, distinct midst them all the lovely voice of the silver-footed spouse of Peleus, and they sigh and sing.
O fool, thou boasting fool, tormented with misery, destroyed are all thy hopes, the playful children of the heart. And, thy heart, Niobe-like, is petrified with grief. In thy brain falls the night, and therein are unsheathed the lightnings of frenzy, and thou makest a boast of thy trouble. O fool, thou boasting fool! Stiff-necked art thou as thy forefather, the lofty Titan who stole celestial fire from the gods and bestowed it upon man, and tortured by eagles chained to the rock, Olympus high, he flung defiance and groaned till we heard it in the depths of the sea, and came to him with the song of consolation. O fool, thou boasting fool! Thou, however, art more impotent still. 'Twere more seemly that thou shouldst honour the gods, and patiently bear the burden of misery, and patiently bear it long, so long, till Atlas himself would lose patience, and cast from his shoulders the ponderous world into eternal night.
So rang the song of the Oceanides, of the beautiful compassionate mermaids, until louder waves overpowered it. Behind the clouds retired the moon, the night yawned, and I sat long thereafter in the darkness and wept. 6. The Gods of Greece. Full blooming moon, in thy radiance like flowing gold shines the sea. With daylight clearness, yet twilight enchantment, thy beams lie over the wide, level beach, and in the pure, blue, starless heavens float the white clouds, like colossal images of gods of gleaming marble? No more again, those are no clouds, they are themselves the gods of Hellas, who erst so joyously governed the world, but now, supplanted and dead, yonder, like monstrous ghosts, must fare through the midnight skies. Amazed and strangely dazzled, I contemplate the ethereal pantheon, the solemnly mute, awfully agitated, gigantic forms. There is Kronos yonder, the king of heaven. Snow white are the curls of his head, the world-renowned Olympus shaking curls. He holds in his hand the quenched lightning, in his face dwell misfortune and grief, but even yet the olden pride. Those were better days, O Zeus, when thou didst celestially divert thyself with youths and nymphs in hecatombs. But the gods themselves reign not forever. The young supplant the old, as thou thyself thy hoary father and thy Titan uncle didst supplant, Jupiter, Parasita. Thee also I recognize, haughty Juno. Despite all thy jealous care, another has wrested thy sceptre from thee, and thou art no longer queen of heaven. And thy great eyes are blank, and thy lily arms are powerless, and nevermore may thy vengeance smite the divinely quickened Virgin and the miracle-performing Son of God. Thee also I recognize, Pallas Athena. With thy shield and thy wisdom, couldst thou not avert the ruin of the gods? Also thee I recognize, thee also, Aphrodite, once the golden, now the silvern. 'Tis true that the love-charmed zone still adorns thee, but I shudder with horror at thy beauty, and if thy gracious body were to favour me, like other heroes, I should die of terror. Thou seemest to me a goddess corpse, Venus Libitina. No longer glances toward thee with love, yonder, the dread Ares. How melancholy looks Phoebus Apollo! The youth, his lyre is silent, which once so joyously resounded at the feast of the gods. Still sadder looks Hephaestus, and indeed nevermore shall the limper stumble into the service of Hebe, and nimbly pour forth to the assemblage the luscious nectar. And long ago was extinguished the unextinguishable laughter of the gods. I have never loved you, ye gods, for to me are the Greeks antipathetic, and even the Romans are hateful. But holy compassion and sacred pity penetrate my heart. When I now gaze upon you yonder, deserted gods, dead night-wandering shadows, weak as mist which the wind scares away, and when I recall how dastardly and visionary are the gods who have supplanted you, the new, reigning dolorous gods, mischief plotters in the sheep's clothing of humility, oh, then a more sullen rancor possesses me, and I fain would shatter the new temples, and battle for you, ye ancient gods, for you and your good ambrosial cause, and before your high altars, rebuilt with their extinguished fires, fain would I kneel and pray, and supplicating uplift mine arms. Always, ye ancient gods, even in the battles of mortals, Always did ye espouse the cause of the victor. But man is more magnanimous than ye, and in the battles of the gods he now takes the part of the gods who have been vanquished. Thus spake I, and lo, visibly blushed yonder the wan cloud figures, and they gazed upon me like the dying transfigured by sorrow, and suddenly disappeared. The moon was concealed behind dark advancing clouds. Loud roared the sea, and triumphantly came forth in the heavens the eternal stars. 7. The Phoenix. A bird comes flying out of the west. He flies to the eastward, towards the eastern garden home, where spices shed fragrance and flourish, and palms rustle, and fountains scatter coolness. And in his flight the magic bird sings.
She loves him, she loves him. She carries his portrait in her little heart, and she carries it sweetly and secretly hidden, and knoweth it not herself. But in dreams he stands before her. She implores and weeps and kisses his hands, and calls his name. And calling she awakes, and she lies in a fright, and amazed she rubs her beautiful eyes. She loves him, she loves him.
Leaning on the mast on the upper deck, I stood and heard the bird's song. Like blackish green steeds with silver manes leapt the white, crisp, curling waves. Like flocks of swans glided past, with gleaming sails, the Helgolands, the bold nomads of the North Sea. Above me, in the eternal blue, fluttered white clouds, and sparkled the eternal sun. The rose of heaven, the fire blossoming, which joyously was mirrored in the sea. And the heavens and seas and mine own heart resounded in echo.
She loves him, she loves him.
8. Question. By the sea, by the desolate nocturnal sea, stands a youthful man, his breast full of sadness, his head full of doubt, and with bitter lips he questions the waves. Oh, solve me the riddle of life, the cruel world-old riddle, concerning which already many a head hath been racked. Heads in hieroglyphic hats, heads in turbans and in black caps, periwigged heads, and 1,000 other poor, sweating human heads. Tell me, what signifies man? Whence does he come? Whither does he go? Who dwells yonder above the golden stars? The waves murmur their eternal murmur, the winds blow, the clouds flow past. Cold and indifferent twinkle the stars, and a fool awaits an answer. 9. Seasickness. The grey afternoon clouds drop lower over the sea, which darkly riseth to meet them, and between them both fares the ship. Seasick, I sit still by the mast, and all by myself indulge in meditation, those world-old, ashen-grey meditations, which erst our father Lot entertained, when he had enjoyed too much of a good thing, and afterwards suffered such inconvenience. Meanwhile I think also of old stories, how pilgrims with a cross on their breast in days of yore, on their stormy voyages devoutly kissed the consoling image of the Blessed Virgin, how sick knights in such ocean trials pressed to their lips with equal comfort the dear glove of their lady. But I sit and chew in vexation, an old herring, my salty comforter. Midst caterwauling and dogged tribulation. Meanwhile the ship wrestles with the wild billowy tide. Like a rearing war horse she stands erect upon her stern till the helm cracks. Now crashes she head foremost downward once more into the howling abyss of waters. Then again, as if recklessly love languid, she tries to recline on the black bosom of the gigantic waves, which powerfully seethe upward, and immediately a chaotic ocean cataract plunges down in crisp curling whiteness and covers me with foam. The shaking and swinging and tossing is unendurable. Vainly mine eye peers forth and seeks the German coast, but alas, only water. And everywhere water, turbulent water. Even as the traveller in winter thirsts for a warm cordial cup of tea, so does my heart now thirst for thee, my German fatherland. May thy sweet soil ever be covered with lunacy, hussars, and bad verses, and thin, lukewarm treatises. May thy zebras ever be fattened on roses instead of thistles. Ever may thy noble apes haughtily strut in negligent attire, and esteem themselves better than all other priggish, heavy-footed, horned cattle. May thine assemblies of snails ever deem themselves immortal, because they crawl forward so slowly. And may they daily convoke in full force to discuss whether the cheese mould belongs to the cheese. And still longer may they convene to decide how best to honor the Egyptian sheep, so that its wool may improve and it may be shorn like others, with no difference. Forever may folly and wrong cover thee all over, O Germany. Nevertheless, I yearn towards thee, for at least thou art dry land. 10. In Port. Happy the man who has reached port, and left behind the sea and the tempest, and who now sits, quietly and warm, in the goodly town cellar of Bremen. How pleasantly and cordially the world is mirrored in the wine-glass, and how the waving microcosm pours sunnily down into the thirsty heart. I see everything in the glass. Ancient and modern tribes, Turks and Greeks, Hegel and Gantz, citron groves and guard parades, Berlin and Schilda and Tunis and Hamburg. Above all the image of my beloved, the little angel head against the golden background of Rhine wine. Oh, how beautiful thou art, beloved! Thou art like a rose, not like the rose of Shiraz, the Hafiz besung bride of the Nightingale, not like the rose of Sharon, the sacred purple extolled by the prophet. Thou art like the rose in the wine cellar Bremen. That is the rose of roses. The older it grows, the fairer it blooms. And its celestial perfume has inspired me. And did not mine host of the town cellar of Bremen, hold me fast, fast by my hair, I should tumble head over heels. The worthy man, we sat together and drank like brothers. We spake of lofty, mysterious things. We sighed and sank in each other's arms. And he led me back to the religion of love. I drank to the health of my bitterest enemy, and I forgave all bad poets, as I shall some day hope to be forgiven myself. I wept with fervor of piety, and at last the portals of salvation were opened to me, where the 12 apostles, the holy wine butts, preach in silence and yet so intelligibly unto all people. Those are men. Without, unseemly in their wooden garb, within, they are more beautiful and brilliant than all the haughty Levites of the temple, and the guards and courtiers of Herod, decked with gold and arrayed in purple. But I have always averred that not amidst quite common folk, no, in the very best society, perpetually abides the King of Heaven. Hallelujah! How lovely around me wave the palms of Bethel! How fragrant are the myrrh trees of Hebron! How the Jordan rustles and reels with joy, and my immortal soul also reels, and I reel with her, and reeling, the worthy host of the town cellar of Bremen leads me upstairs into the light of day. Thou worthy host of the town cellar of Bremen, seest thou on the roofs of the houses sit the angels, and they are drunk and they sing. The glowing sun up yonder is naught but a red drunken nose, the nose of the spirit of the universe, and around the red nose of the spirit of the universe reels the whole tipsy world. 11. Epilogue. Like the stalks of wheat in the fields, so flourish and wave in the mind of man his thoughts. But the delicate fancies of love are like gay, little intermingled blossoms of red and blue flowers. Red and blue flowers! The surly reaper rejects you as useless. The wooden flail scornfully thrashes you. Even the luckless traveller, whom your aspect delights and refreshes, shakes his head, and calls you beautiful weeds. But the rustic maiden, the wearer of garlands, honours you and plucks you, and adorns you with her fair locks. And thus decorated, she hastens to the dancing green, where the flutes and fiddles sweetly resound, or to the quiet bushes, where the voice of her beloved soundeth sweeter still than fiddles or flutes. End a poem. This recording is in the public domain. End of Poems and Ballads by Heinrich Heine. Translated by Emma Lazarus.